Hey, how's it going everyone? It is Draco. We're back with another chapter of Fairy Tale 100 Year Quest, chapter 188, Mermaid Fun. And the cover page for this chapter is continuing the trend of having a Fire and Flames member with the before and after being dragonized. This time it is Luso, which I actually think on the dragonized design so far, I actually quite like her design as the dragonized version. But then again, hers is more, I guess, cutesy dragonized compared to some of them. So we pick up the chapter basically recapping all the matchups that were being set up in last chapter, which is where we go over to Juvia and her battle. I love the fact that Juvia didn't really mean to help out Melody. Like, she was going to help out Gray first, but she just happened to end up here, and now that she's here, she's like, well, I can't really leave her to die, but I did really want to go help Gray right now. She definitely is thinking of Gray a little too much to where she's literally yelling out loud how much she wishes that she could go see Gray right now. Absolutely love that when she hears her opponent here starting to talk about gates and that he's going to open the gate to the underworld, that she immediately thinks he's using celestial spirit magic of some kind, and because he's using celestial spirit magic, that means he's got ties to Lucy, and because he's got ties to Lucy, that means he's a love rival. I love the absolute stretch that Juvia does to make this happen. Pretty much with zero hesitation whatsoever, she immediately attacks him with a water slicer. Which I will say, this whole gate thing is super interesting because he opens the gate and, the gate has Juvia's water go through it, and her water turns into wood, to where he has the wood go through another gate, and that wood eventually turns into fire to burn Juvia. To be honest, it doesn't do much at anything to Juvia since she's made of water, to where she basically says it's not going to affect her, which I kind of doubt. Like, at a certain point, like, her body is made of water. Like, wouldn't Juvia just turn into steam? But since the gates are a problem and she can't just long range attack him, she decides to get up close, attack him with a water jigsaw, which that is also not so effective because his body is also a gate, and her hand starts to go through that gate to where her hand actually turned into wood, but she was able to pull her hand back out and then her hand's like fine. The chapter does get a bit confusing, but I think this is one of those fights to where it shows Juvia is pretty good at being tactically resourceful when she needs to be, because a piece of wood goes through his gate and then that turns into like metal. And because she's seeing all these different elemental changes by passing through the gate, how one element is turning into another, it gives Juvia an idea as to how to defeat him. She's figuring out what each element turns into when it goes through the gate. Essentially, she starts to put together a plan as to how to overwhelm his gates and defeat him once and for all. Kind of interesting that as Juvia's thinking up this plan, she does think of Lucy and thinking about how she would be better for this situation. But before Juvia even gets to enact her plan, he opens up one last gate, and that's the Realm of the Dead, which is literally the same thing that happened to Melody multiple times now, and they both get grabbed, and it's like, oh no, not this again. And before anything even gets to happen, this is where Juvia is basically like, well, it's now or never, time to kick this plan into action. So she starts putting different elements into the portals so they kind of do a feedback loop of one element going into one portal, turning into another element, going into another portal. All the while, Juvia is summoning in a bunch of water to surround her and completely overwhelm the area. And honestly, this is quite the misdirect because I was like, no freaking way. Like, Juvia's asking for Lucy's help in this moment, and she puts her hands into the water and says, open gate of the water bearer. And honestly, like, I was like, no freaking way that Juvia's gonna summon Aquarius. Like, did she make a special contract behind Lucy's back, like, to get Aquarius? Honestly, Juvia does a bit of transformation magic herself to where she does Juvia Aquarius, to where she's like a mermaid version of herself. Honestly, kind of reminds me of Noelle Silva from Black Clover, to where she has like a mermaid water form. But Juvia's making this giant, like, cyclone of water around her opponent. But he gets a bit cocky. He's like, well, you didn't learn. I can just suck the water into my portal that is my body and like get rid of all this. But at the same time, he didn't realize that all of his other portals are currently being used to turn into other elements. So the water is just getting blocked to the point to where it just keeps storing inside of his body to the point that he literally explodes. And I love that Melody immediately asks, like, do you actually know celestial spirit magic? Like, how the flip did you turn into a Aquarius version of yourself? And nope, she didn't use any celestial spirit magic. To be honest, she just probably formed her body into a mermaid form because it's made of water. She just did it out of like pure instinct and just pretending to be a mermaid. She thought it might help her increase her power level. I also love that she's kind of petty about this to where it's like, well, I did it to increase the power of love and because of jealousy. With that, it is the end of this chapter, so my thoughts. Super glad that Juvia gets a win, that we haven't seen her in a while, let alone in a solo fight by herself, not like Gray as her. And I also kind of love that she took the idea of like, I'm going to make my body like Aquarius and like attack like Aquarius, even though she wasn't using any celestial spirit magic. Got a little bit confusing with all the gate stuff, but honestly, I kind of love how she won this fight. Overall, super glad that Juvia got a win, and it's just cool to see new moves from her and just kind of a tactical prowess. What are your guys' thoughts on this chapter? Leave in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and this is Drago, signing out.